to the station Decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by Bears Rebecca, writer and director and editor of How Far Does the Dark Go, which is an interesting title, I think. For people not aware, could you give them an idea of what the movie's about?
It's a supernatural romance. It's a lesbian vampire film in the sort of guise of the old vamploitation films of the 70s, reimagined for the current modern, I don't know, indie art house, queer film, indie film kind of scene.
And it's going to be playing at Queer Screams Film Festival August 2nd in Portland, Oregon. Have you been to that festival before?
I haven't, but I know the guy who runs it because he used to run the NOLA Horror Festival in New Orleans, and I had a film that played with him there. Actually, my last short played there. And so when he said he was getting to do his dream festival, start a new festival that was going to focus on queer films that are of the horror genre, I was super excited for him. So I think it's the perfect place for the film to open.
Yeah. And going into the premiere, what's it feeling like, to watch your movie with an audience for the first time?
I'm so anxious and excited to see it with a crowd because it's lived on my computer screen for so long, and I've shown it to one or two people at a time where I've been there, but I really haven't had that experience of seeing how it goes with a big crowd. So there's a lot of comic elements into this film, and comedy works a whole lot better with a group of people than it does on your own.
Yeah,
So
both. Yeah, well, yeah, it's true. And I think both horror and comedy are the two movies that work best with an audience because you're actually
absolutely.
overtly reacting. I guess you could all sit around and cry together, but it's not necessarily the same thing.
As a society, we sort of frown upon group crying, it seems like, so maybe people would hide those tears, whereas, they can't hide if something jumps out at them or, or if they are forced to laugh, hopefully.
Yeah. So you talked about some of the inspirations for the movie. What would be some of your favorite movies in that genre or subgenre?
If I had to pick it's all the films of Jean Rollin from the 70s, like Fascination and Lips of the Vampire, Blood of the Vampire, and then sort of the films of Jess Franco, Vampirus Lesbos, Sinner. It's that idea of a combination of titillation and thriller that both of them were really good at, but always I think both filmmakers tended to, even though they were making a film with the male gaze, they tended to have very strong female characters, both protagonists and antagonists. I think having a vampire always allows you to have kind of a strong antagonist. There's a long history of fantastic vampire villains, and so taking that as sort of the jumping off point was always part of the film for me.
When you watch those movies, like as a young person, like, is that something you even thought about? Like, oh, this is, through the male gaze, or is that something that, like, as you get older, like, oh, that's there.
Well, of course, being a trans filmmaker, I was probably subject to watching it from the male gaze as well
Fair
for a
enough.
bit,
Yeah.
you know. No, I think you just become a little bit more aware as a filmmaker what choices are being made and how much control a director really has to the experience of the viewer. And you look at that and you compare it to something like The Hunger, which is a great David Bowie film, another lesbian vampire film, essentially, I would say bisexual vampire film. And that's a very different film in terms of just how it's shot. It's a very romantic and beautiful film. And so I wanted to kind of take that sort of sense. That's a Ridley Scott film, actually, and aim for a little bit more romance in my film like
What
that.
is it about vampires? Because, like, you can really do all different things. You could have, like, just a really, a bloodbath of vampires, but you could have, like you said, more romantic movie. What is it about vampires that have been around for centuries that people are always drawn to them?
I think one of the great things about a vampire is you start by world building and you get to decide what your rules are. Everybody's vampire is a little bit different in terms of what their powers are, how you defeat them, uh, the story is, how aware the world is of vampires. So that becomes part of it. And that's really fun. And then vampires has such a long life usually. And so when you're thinking about a character's history, their history ends up being a lot more complete than a lot of other characters. So that can be real fun. And then depending on what your powers are, and what their limitations are, that really informs the film you're making. Like if a vampire can't really be out in the daylight, which is what most vampires are, then like where is that vampire going to be? And so for us, it became an opportunity to really explore the subways of Philadelphia and this vast, complicated network of unused tunnels that are below the city, as a sort of a vampire hunting ground, and that really played into the story and how it developed.
And you talk about, not people, well, the vampires live for centuries. So it's really interesting in your movie where the son, isn't a vampire. So he's an older guy, much older in appearance than his mother.
Yeah, that was one of the central things that I loved about the film, from the very start, which was that the character who spent the most time with the vampire didn't want to be a vampire and had probably had that choice offered to him again and again and again. Whereas we're seeing the film through the eyes of a young woman who has just been taken, who is also sort of being offered the choice of becoming a vampire and is seeing how exciting that lifestyle could be. And so it becomes a comment, a discussion between those two choices.
It's usually, the other way around. The kind of the Renfield character, whatever, is always someone that really wants to become a vampire, and whatever reason the vampire won't give that to them.
Yeah, yeah, the vampire is holding out. In this case, I think uh, Grace's life isn't all that fantastic. The nurse, she's addicted to morphine and kind of poor and just doesn't have a whole lot in her life. And so this possibility of having a carefree lifestyle where you've just got tons of money sitting in a chest underneath the ground, and you can do anything you want as long as you don't mind eating people every once in a while. That's pretty fantastic. But for Henry, he's experienced this since he was a child. He's experienced the death and destruction that his mother has sort of wrought on the world as she stumbles through life, and that's the last thing he wants to be. He studied what it means to be a vampire. He wrote a book about it, actually, and that's the last thing he would want to do. So he's ready to face his his end, and his mother, who has been going for years and years, and all she wanted was a child. The last thing she wants is to lose somebody to just a regular death. That's terrible for her.
Casting the two main, people, because it's primarily them. There's other characters, obviously, like the son, but if you don't have those two strong leads, like the movie's not going to work. And so, not only two good people, but you have to make sure they have chemistry. So, did you have them like audition together to see like if they played well off each other?
Sure. The lead vampire, Evian, she had been with the project since it was a short film, and so she was always going to play that role. It was somebody that I had met through the original film, and we started talking about making a feature and building it around her. And so then when we were auditioning for Grace, it was great because every single person we read with her, and I always got to see the two of them together. Of course, it was over Zoom, as all auditions are now. So you hope they have chemistry when they get together. But we started very simply with easier scenes to kind of build up the chemistry between them when we started shooting, and we worked up to the last scenes we shot.
You run your own festival. So, what would you say is the importance of film festivals for independent films?
There's so few avenues right now for fresh ideas to get out into the world from film. Most studios are only interested in developing properties that they already own or that they've already paid for, and so then they get a bunch of money hooked up into it, and then they have to double think everything because everything's got to make $200 million. It's got to have Tom Cruise in it, right? So the only place you're getting fresh voices is film festivals. And the smaller the film festival, the more likely it is to take a chance on something that you haven't seen before. And I've just seen brilliant stuff, mostly at genre festivals and queer festivals. That's where I go to. But at Fantastic Fest and Fantasia, every year there's fresh voices that are not in the studio system yet, and you hope that someday they'll be given a bigger budget to make something incredible. And that's obviously the goal with this film, is to get all of our names out there and do something that we wouldn't be allowed to do if this had a big production company name at the title at the
Yeah, and
top
that's
of it.
always really fun when I do see something really cool, and then that person goes on to do something else, and it's like, oh wow, I knew them, and they're good people, and I'm a huge fan of festivals. So, where can people follow you to see where how far does the dark go?
The best place
Okay.
will be on Instagram. We have an Instagram account at Real Rain Productions. That's the production company, or just the hashtag How Far Does the Dark Go?
All right, very good. Well, thank you for doing this, and congratulations on the movie. I hope the premiere goes well, and I look forward to seeing other things from you.
Thank you so much, Neil.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Adrienne Barbeau. Just call me Billy. Everyone does. And you're listening to withoutyourhead.com.